Blanche Kiser was born on the 17th of February 1933 in Concord, North Carolina, to parents Parker Kiser and Flonnie Blanche, which is where she inherited her first name. Parker was a mill worker and was also a highly thought of minister in the local community. He was a known womanizer and an alcoholic. Behind closed doors, he was not a great father or husband, and it has been reported that Parker forced both wife and daughter into prostitution so that they could pay off his ever-increasing gambling debts. This, however, has not been substantiated by any of the other 6 siblings in the large family. He then died in 1966 of a heart attack. Blanche married in 1952, at age 19, to a man called James Taylor. He was a retired furniture restorer and a veteran from the US Army. They went on to have 2 children together. Once the children began attending school, she decided to go back to work to make some money and make it easier on her husband, who was, for many years, the main breadwinner. She got a job as a cashier at the Burlington, North Carolina Kroger store, a large chain of grocery shops. Within 5 years, she had risen through the ranks and was now the head cashier. This was the highest position held by a woman in those times. Blanche began an affair with the store manager by the name of Raymond Reed. He was divorced and had 2 sons from his previous marriage. But as she was still married to Taylor, the affair had to be kept quiet. But they were able to meet frequently due to both working at the same Kroger store. Years after the affair began, her husband, James Taylor, died suddenly of a heart attack in 1971, aged 45. Now the affair with Reed could be made public, and it was. Then the couple were official and moved in together. They lasted until 1985, when Blanche got bored of the relationship. It was reported that she had begun another affair, but this time with a man by the name of Robert Hutton. He was Taylor's boss and was in charge of many of the Kroger stores in the area. But this was not made public, and after he ended the affair, Blanche filed a lawsuit against Hutton for sexual harassment. This was an accusation that Hutton denied all along, saying that she was upset due to the fact that he ended the affair with her. Blanche won the lawsuit and was awarded a huge amount of money. Blanche was an avid churchgoer and an extremely religious woman, or so it was seen by the local residents. Religion had always been in her life, as her father was a minister. She often helped with the church fundraising and was considered a grandmother to many of the churchgoers. She was highly thought of. Blanche made her way to the next man in her life, while her current husband Reed was still on the scene, and to him, still happily married. The new man was called Dwight Moore. He was the Reverend. They met at church and hit it off. Many of the Christians at the church told him how wonderful Blanche was and what a great pastor's wife she would make. During this time, Reed got very sick and spent long spells in hospital, unable to keep food down due to nausea and vomiting. Blanche was at his bedside, feeding and nursing him, acting like the doting wife, while doctors tried to find the cause of his mysterious illness. But by early October 1985, he was dead. His death was put down to an autoimmune disease called Guillain-Barré syndrome. An autopsy was ordered, but Blanche put up a fight to have this stopped, telling the family that he had been looked at enough by the medics. They agreed, and he was buried without one. The idea of an autopsy filled Blanche with fear. she did not want to be found out for what she had really done to husband number 2. Blanche was to benefit from Reed's will. It stated for the inheritance to be split equally 3 ways between her and Reed's 2 sons. Blanche was now free to publicly date the Reverend, and so the relationship was made public. In 1987, shortly after Moore and Blanche advertised their engagement, Blanche got the news that she herself was now battling breast cancer. She survived with surgery to remove it, and then the marriage to the Reverend could take place. This happened on the 19th of April, 1989. They had a short honeymoon together, but just 2 days after their return, the Reverend came down with a very sudden illness. This illness, surprisingly, had the same exact symptoms as many of the other men in Blanche's life. Doctors were perplexed as to why this suddenly happened to a fit and healthy man. They performed a toxicology test on Moore and was shocked when it revealed the amount of arsenic in his system. He was poisoned. It had come to fruition that he had previously been asked by Blanche to purchase some arsenic-based ant killer for her property, obviously unaware that this was going to be used as a weapon against the men in Blanche's life and ultimately himself. Luckily, Moore survived this poison attack by his so-called loving wife, which was a shock as the amount of poison that was in his system should have been more than enough to kill him. After this discovery, it was ordered that the bodies of both Taylor and Reed were exhumed, and autopsies revealed that they both had arsenic in their system. Later on, the body of her father was also tested, and this was also the case with him. Blanche's murder count was at 3, with 1 attempt at murder. On July the 18th, 1989, Blanche Taylor Moore was arrested with the charge of first-degree murder attached to her for the death of Reed only. The trial began on the 21st of October 1990. Blanche denied all charges and stated that she never once gave him food. But witness after witness came forward to revoke that. Over 50 witnesses, in fact, all testifying they saw Blanche spoon-feeding him at the hospital and at home. Women were given the name the Black Widow if they were known to gain from a man and leave him for dead or kill him herself. During her trial, she made numerous attempts at trying to get off of the murder charge. She wrote a letter from a man named Gavin Thomas, who made the claim that he killed the men in Blanche's life, and he did it out of love for her and jealousy of those who she married. But handwriting experts denied this, saying that Blanche had written the letter herself. On the 14th of November 1990, Blanche was found guilty of Reed's murder, and a jury had made the recommendation that the Black Widow should be given the death penalty. But with any recommendation, the judge can ultimately overrule this and reduce the sentence to life in prison instead. But the judge agreed with the jury, and in January 1991, Blanche was sentenced to the death penalty and would be killed by the lethal injection. Blanche was taken to the North Carolina Correctional Facility, and this is where she remains. And at the age of 87, she is now the oldest woman to be on death row. Since being in jail, other bodies have been exhumed of people who had died who had been linked to Blanche, such as work colleagues and past partners, but none of these deaths have been able to be connected to Blanche directly. Blanche had made many appeals to have her death sentence overturned to life imprisonment instead, but these have all been denied. The poisonings came only a few years after the well-known serial killer Velma Barfield's active time. Maybe this Black Widow took her inspiration from the killings that Velma was known to have committed. The question is, do you agree that Blanche Taylor Moore's and Velma Barfield's cases are similar? And do you think that Velma was Blanche's inspiration to become a Black Widow herself? Thank you so much for your continued support. Feel free to leave a comment, as we enjoy reading them. If you like the video, please hit the like button and subscribe if you want to hear more stories from Crime Busters.